Let's take Andy first. You're going to give me a microphone, or should I just... Yes, I'm going to. So he has 5 minutes to introduce himself and tell you what he wants to tell you about.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. I've been here twice before, 2012 and 2014. And I'd like to start off by thanking you because in the 6 counties of our district in 2014, I got 1 in 10 votes, which is higher than any Green, Libertarian, or Independent running for state or federal office anywhere in California. I got 1 in 8 here in Trinity County. And I've been very curious about how this 5-minute talk 2 years ago got me so many votes. Well, here's the deal. It's really simple. This choice, you have 3 people to pick from. And it's basically where you are is probably going to determine who you vote for. Jared Huffman, our incumbent congressman, was a Hillary superdelegate and represents status quo Democrats. I'm one of the first Bernie-crats, so if you prefer Bernie or independents, or you're not real fond of the status quo Democrats, I'm your guy. And then you've got a Republican who is a neighbor of mine, grocery clerk, who thinks the world's 6,000 years old. You think that'll help you? Okay. Well, I'm actually the only candidate who has signed the Contract for American Renewal. The idea is that you need to be able to hold your candidates accountable. So this contract is 11 different things that those of us who have signed it have promised to introduce as legislation within 6 months of entering office. That includes $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all, free college, public college through a PhD, ending corporate united, ending corporate personhood, ending the war in Afghanistan, and several other things. You can see what they are on my flyer, which is over there. And I'll wrap up by saying 2 things. One, if you are satisfied that our government can take care of things, if you just vote in 1 or 2 good people, then you're supporting a reform position. I don't believe that can happen. When I started to run in 2012, I was warning everybody about collapsing ice sheets. In 2014, NASA announced that the collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet and 20 feet of sea level rise is unstoppable. So I'm trying to get our coastal nukes shut down before they're flooded. That's always been my top priority. But the way we have to respond to it is we have to redesign our infrastructure around getting off of fossil fuels. And that's another part of the contract. And so I care about your roads. I care about your community. I want every community secure. And I care about the environment. And I especially care about your kids. Because Jared has said he was going to get things done. He got 40 bills through the Assembly. When he was an assemblyman in California, he's gotten 1 bill through in the last 6 years. It doesn't matter what the person's positions are if they can't see what they're up against. I believe we have a bunch of traitors in both parties who are in power because of bankers from Wall Street. They aren't in there because of Main Street. And the only way to change that is to have an electoral revolution, start to support community candidates such as myself, lend a hand, and as Bernie's campaign manager, Jim Weaver said, you got to make a little bit of contribution for us to win because we can't win without that. So there's also a jar over there. Thank you very much. And I've got a bumper sticker. They're all free. I hope to see it on your cars. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to also mention that Jared Huffman is not here to speak to you tonight. He's in Washington, D.C. doing the nation's business. He's in session today and tomorrow both, so he's kind of out of the picture to talk to us. So next is Mat Heath, and again, Jim Woods is not here because he is also in session in Sacramento today and tomorrow, so he won't be here to join us. So hand this over to you.
Thank you, sir. How's everyone doing tonight? I apologize. This is the only one I've made it to. You guys have kind of had a marathon worth of candidate forums this year, and I think that's outstanding because that's how democracy works. That's how a democratic elected republic works, getting out there, having voice, having communication. Far too often nowadays, we have two polarized sides of every issue and rarely come across and talk. And so what my candidacy does is it tries to bridge that gap together. So my name is Matt Heath. I'm candidate for state assembly, and I appreciate him saying that Jim Wood's in session, but quite frankly, I'd like to ask when's the last time Jim Wood has been in Trinity, or when's the last time you've known he's been in Trinity? Because if I tour this district, lots of times that's the case. He doesn't come to the district. When he does, it's something the newspaper reports on after the fact. I've made it a point to travel all through the district, whether it be Trinity County, Delmore, Mendocino, Humboldt. I'm from Sonoma County, Santa Rosa. As I've told a few of you today, I call that the gerrymandered part of the district. The legislature and the Citizens Initiative Committee, when they drafted this new district, they threw Santa Rosa in there and northern Sonoma. Santa Rosa is 25% of the vote in this district. Sonoma County, which is only the northern half of it, is 40% of this district. Sonoma County determines who your representative is going to be. So it's no wonder why my opponent spends his time campaigning in Sonoma County, because that's where the votes come from and that's what he cares about. So in Santa Rosa, I'm a father of an awesome 12-year-old son, and I've got a wife of 18 years. I own and operate a small business, a meat distribution delivery service. I had a stint on a rural school board, the Gravenstein Union School District. And just a few years ago, I spent 4 years on my local elementary school site council. It's extremely important to me that I get involved in my local community, try to have as much input and try to get to know as many people as possible, and try to make sure that we're represented. Because ultimately, that's what this job is about. This is about representing you and representing your neighbors and representing your community. California's in rough shape. 1 in 5 Californians live in poverty. We're the 5th largest economy. We're some of the highest taxed and regulated people in the nation. But yet we still live in poverty, and the folks in Sacramento just want to keep adding up more taxes upon you. Our roads are some of the worst in the nation. Any of the roads you know, I got to say, coming off 36, that was really nice coming in here. I was actually surprised how well maintained that is. But you get over to 101, you get down to other parts, it's horrendous roads. Our education system in California is one of the worst in the nation as well, too. I think it ranks 44th with quality of education. Yet California, out of Sacramento, spends some of the highest per pupil spending. The problem is it doesn't get down to the school district. It doesn't get down to the teachers in the classroom. It gets siphoned off beforehand. That's the sort of thing we need to change. We need to cut out the middlemen. We need to make sure that we're represented and make sure that the essential services that we pay for, that we are guaranteed, are taken care of and they're not siphoned off. One of the biggest issues as I tour this district that I find, especially in the rural areas, that folks are really upset about is the gas tax. I've never paid so much for gasoline. And it's not as if that money's coming back into the district. That money is disproportionately being sent into other parts of the state, and that's ridiculous. I'm a California transplant. I originally came from New Jersey. New Jersey is very similar to Oregon. You have someone who pumps your gas for you. One of my first jobs in high school was pumping gas, and it was 71 cents a gallon. And it's absolutely ridiculous that here, driving up here, the cheapest I could find was $3.79. So we got rid of the illegal fire tax. They somehow slipped that into SB1, but they also increased the gas tax. The fire tax is about $150 per parcel. I'm sure everybody in this room is paying more than $150 now extra in gas. That's going to school, that's going to work, that's picking your kids up from sporting activities, that's a daily effect. No wonder 1 in 5 are living in poverty. So I'm here to represent you and everybody in this district, and I hope that I can earn your vote with that. My name is Matt Heath, and I would love to earn your vote as state assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. I too grew up in New Jersey.
All right.
And my third job in high school was pumping gas. And I can guarantee you it was a lot cheaper than 77 cents. Right. A quart of oil was a nickel.
Where in New Jersey?
Morganville.
All right. Very cool.
Okay. I've got an interesting question here for both of you, actually. And we'll start with Andy. How do you plan on stopping chemtrails? You both get a chance on this one.
Okay. So my friend Bud Rogers does the chemtrails program on KMUD once a month. And what I've told him since the very beginning is that when I'm elected to Congress, I will look into it. And I've asked people to submit the science to me so that I can argue from the science. That's what I've always done, climate, forest, whatever. And as your congressman, I will make sure that there is some kind of session, meeting, where everybody can submit whichever experts they want with whatever information they have. We'll publicize it, and we'll explore what that information is. But I'm also a person who's willing to go out and protest against these things. And I invite all of you who are concerned about it. If you have a protest, if you know a place where the planes are taking off, if you know a member of Congress or other government official who's behind this, if you know a company where they are, organize it. What's that? Oh, on the question? Okay, sorry. Then invite me for that. And the only other thing I'll say is my website is andycaffrey.org. Please check it out. There's a lot of information there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I got to say, this is the first time I've ever been asked that in a public forum. It's kind of a unique question, I got to say, and I'll start out this, that with my son in elementary school, he goes to middle school now, and it's a drive, but it was a half-mile walk, K through 5, and we used to walk to school every morning. It was a half-mile full round. And I did kind of find it interesting that we used to be able to play tic-tac-toe in the sky, because I really don't remember being able to do that as a kid. So it's something that I really think we need to look into. I don't have a definitive answer on it. I don't know why that is the case. Is it really just contrails? Is it some sort of weather maintenance going on up there? I have no idea, but it's something that I would look into because I have a 12-year-old son, and I don't want him exposed to anything else that he's already been exposed to. So, like I said, it's an interesting question. I wish I knew what it was and what I could do about it, but that's the sort of thing that it needs to be studied, and unfortunately, like a lot of issues, they're not really studied. And so it's something we need to be honest with and have a real discussion about. But whoever asked that question.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I've got one other one, and it's really probably for Matt, but you might want to add your 2 cents to it. What are your views on the state of Jefferson?
All right. Well, many of you know I ran 4 years ago for state assembly, and I had made a pledge that if I had gotten elected, that one of the first bills that I would bring forth would be to get the ball rolling, to be able to hear the grievances of the folks of the North State in creating a state of Jefferson. There's a reason why it is. It started in the 30s and 40s, and for the same reasons. Roads aren't being maintained, services aren't being brought, and you're being taxed and regulated. And so it's the same issues. And so I'm very sympathetic towards it, and I can say that if the state of Jefferson was ever created with the lines of Mendocino County to the south, I would 100% move to Hopland so that I could be in the state of Jefferson, because at least I believe there would be better representation for that.
That's a very interesting question. Back in the early 80s, I helped start two parties, the Citizens Party and the Green Party, and we used to have these lectures of people with interesting new ideas, and one of them is bioregionalism. And the idea of bioregionalism is that big countries don't do well. We need to decentralize. Just like we have 50 states here, we need to decentralize. So in a general sense, I believe the only way you can develop a sustainable economy is within the context of your ecozone, which is a bioregion. In other words, how much forestry can you do in an area? You determine that based on a specific place. And so I'm very much a bioregionalist. I think the state of Jefferson is a great idea. I don't know about the particulars of it. I'm over in Humboldt County, so we didn't get all the details that you guys have, but I definitely am a decentralist.
Thank you both. And yes. So
All right, thank you.
We'll now bring up Treasurer, Tax Collector, Diane Richards, and Terry McBriar. Okay, same drill. 5 minutes to introduce yourself and say something, and then I'm gonna give it to Diana because she's closest to me.
Thank you everybody for coming out. I know it's looking pretty stormy out there. We're going to get some more rain.
I'm Diane Richards from Hayfork. I live 2 miles that way. And I love this place. To me, this is a sacred valley. So I love all of you that are here. It's really special to be with you. I'm running for treasurer. You know, I ran for supervisor, and that is still election contest in the courts. Meanwhile, while that was going on, our present auditor came to me about a year ago, unsolicited, and asked me to run for treasurer. And I said, why? Why should I do that? And she said, because they're not doing reconciliations and they're not letting me into the bank accounts. I'm like, wow. So I started to look into what's going on in the treasurer's office. Before that, I had actually done a citizen, or attempted a citizen's audit, working with the past auditor, Marilyn Horn, and when I got into the books and backup, what I found was very interesting. Lots of things that should not be happening. For instance, we found that one of the department heads was able to buy tires, very high-end tires, for his own personal truck. And we just cut a check for it, no problem. I found that we had lost the ownership, basically, of our courthouse and our detention center as collateral for a thing called a COP, or a certificate of participation, when we didn't want a municipal bond to, say, the hospital. They got $4.5 million at 8.5%, unbeknownst to all of us, and then deposited that into the general fund. Again, that was illegal what they did, and I brought that up to people, and now they know. The next thing that I found was that we were putting out $30,000 to $100,000 a month in credit cards. It seems that everybody in this county government has a credit card, which is not an acceptable policy. That's not how corporations run or governments run, but here it is. And so there was no backup. There were just payments going out to the bank. So I asked for the backup. I asked for access to the bank accounts. They said no. In fact, they stopped letting me have access totally. And then when I finally got back in, all the records I was looking for were destroyed. They weren't put on microfiche or e-file or electronic. They were absolutely destroyed. So you have to wonder what they were hiding with that. And the fact that they don't let you into the public records, you have to wonder, are we the CIA or something? Why are they not letting us into the public records? Because all documents in our county government, all financial records are supposed to be open. If I get in, they will be transparent. When I looked at the website, the investments that the treasurer's handles, they were not posted for 2 years. And when I brought it up the first candidate meeting, very soon thereafter, they were posted the two years worth of the investment reports. And then when I was able to see them, that we have investments, for instance, in 3 mutual funds. One of them, which is a French company. Everybody on the board is French. It started under France. Yes, they have headquarters around the world, but they are headquartered in France. They're a Rothschild-based company, etc. And the other 2 mutual funds also purchased Rothschild, and it was basically absorbed into that Franklin mutual fund. So we basically have $4 million invested that we get almost nothing back from, 0.5%, for 26 years. So when they claim that they're doing investments, it's just sitting there as usual. And then I have also, from a very good source, told me that someone working in the treasurer's office was 3 times accused as an embezzler in 3 different financial institutions. Now you might say, well, how could that possibly happen? That's very shocking. Well, our own DMV here in California, in Trinity County, they were arrested, charged, and etc., indicted, and found guilty of embezzlement. They were embezzling the cash payments, and I've had several people tell me that when they went to pay their property taxes here in the tax collector's office in cash, their account was not credited. So again, we need to have some oversight, and that's another thing. We do not have an oversight committee here. We should have an oversight committee made up of 10 to 12 citizens that would be appointed by the supervisors that would work with the treasurer to make sure what investments we're doing, what are the bank accounts. So that transparency will happen. I would be open 9 to 5. Everything would be posted on the website so you can see where all your money is. 100% transparency. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Terry Meekber, and I'm your current treasurer tax collector. To give you a personal perspective on me, I was born in a little town on the East Coast, and my husband was born in a little town on the West Coast. We met in the middle of a big town called Dallas. After visiting his hometown of Weaverville, it won my heart, and we decided this was a place that we wanted to call home, and we wanted to raise our children. My husband, Jeremy, and I have 2 adult children, a teenage son, and we're current foster parents as well. We are grateful to have this close-knit community. Today's our anniversary, and so special thank you to my honey for spending our anniversary at a candidate's night tonight. So romantic. Seriously though, thank you for being supportive tonight and always. I look forward to a million more years. I've served in this office for over 10 years now. My finance and banking experience spans 20 plus years. I hold a bachelor's degree in accounting with the emphasis in business administration. I'm a credentialed California County Senior Executive through CSAC. The credential I hold through CSAC is a 2-year program that has specific curriculum requirements that are designed for county officials and built on a foundation of leadership and policy competencies expected of effective county officials. The responsibilities of treasurer tax collector are established by laws, codes, and county ordinances. As an elected official, I have fiduciary responsibilities. My obligations are to collect, protect, and invest the vital revenues of the county. I have a wonderful team that works hard and continuously strives to ensure the best overall experience for our community members. I truly appreciate their attitudes and their service. I'd like to provide some clarification on some of the statements that were made and alluded to during this campaign. My team has integrity and takes pride in their reputations and all of the work that they do. We hold ourselves to a high standard. Any employee or volunteer who works in our office must be thoroughly vetted through the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is known for their thorough skills and above stellar in screening out criminals prior to hiring. Everyone in our office has been cleared through them. Our current district attorney has written a letter in support of these employees, verifying that no one in our office is not been under any investigation, as my opponent would like to allege. In reference to the topics that she's referencing, those happen to be auditor topics. They are not pertaining to the treasurer's office. And as far as reconciliation takes place daily, every day, between myself and also the auditor's office. So that would be an untrue statement again. As far as Natixis goes, that is a global company. That is not a French company. Having a degree in education and investments, you would understand that a global company can have headquarters all around the world. And with a global company, they can have a headquarters in France. It's okay, as long as those are U.S. securities. As long as those comply with the government code 53601, that's okay. We're in compliance with the government code 53601, folks. And as far as cash is proceeding with that would be a completely untrue statement if that were to take place. Anyone that comes into our office, I wouldn't go into an office and hand somebody receipt and cash and walk away without receipt. That would walk away without a receipt. That doesn't take place ever. Number one, that violate quite a few cash handling policies, so that'd be an untrue statement. I believe openness, accountability, and honesty are what define transparency. I'm committed to fulfilling my legal obligation to collect and protect vital revenues of local government. I take my responsibilities seriously. I have the formal educational knowledge and the expert experience, which makes me the best choice for your treasurer tax collector. I look forward to serving you for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I have a question here. What training and education do you have to fill this position as tax collector treasurer and run it efficiently? And I'll start with Terry.
I hold multiple degrees, as well as I'm holding this position for over 10 years. And in addition to that, I hold multiple certificates that are specific to county government, specific to finance, and specific to government funds and investing.
My experience with finance goes way back when I was an intern for World Security Fund. We actually protected American companies across the world and got them the financing they needed, and the insurance they needed for their business and investigated their finances, etc. I've run multiple businesses at the same time. I've established franchises for many corporations across the United States, so I understand banking, I understand finance. I'm able to go and investigate. We're in audit. Thank you.
Okay, next question. What college did you graduate from?
I have college in both University of Miami, Miami-Dade Community College, and Oglala Lakota College when I lived on the reservation. I was in pre-med. I was on the President's Honor Roll, Dean's List, and I also earned the American Legion Award for Scholastic Excellence. I did not finish college. I became a mother, and I have 6 kids, 2 of which are firefighters here.
I graduated from Shasta College, Kaplan University. I have certificates from Texas Women's University. I have certificates from CSAC, I've got quite a few certificates. I have 3 biological children, 3 foster children, and I have quite a few nieces and nephews that I've raised as well.
Next question. Do the tax collector's duties include investment of county funds? What licenses are held by staff to allow the buying and selling of investment instruments? Financial Industry Regulation Authority, FINRA Series 7 or 6.
Currently at this time, we do not have specific requirements for the licenses. There is government code that's specific to what a treasurer tax collector should have as far as education. That is something that I'm looking at to adopt, hopefully as soon as in the next 2 weeks, to adopt the education that what a treasurer tax collector should have. That's something that could be extremely detrimental to the county. These are schools, roads, and special districts. So if those funds are not handled properly, we all will, it'll be detrimental to all of us.
Those funds aren't being handled properly. We get $100 million a year. Where is it going? That's what my job is, to find out where that is. And nobody seems to care that are department heads right now. It'll be very easy for me to go become a certified financial analyst. I'll be able to attain it within 2 years. I think that would be adequate. That is for investments, and I just need to have the time in and take some courses, and I will be able to take the exam. I took a pre-exam, and I pretty much almost aced it. So I know I can do the job.
Thank you. This one's pretty much addressed to Terry. What is your view of the legal requirement for a Treasury Oversight Committee that is open to the public? Mrs. Breyer, is one in place currently? And if so, when does it meet? And are the meetings open to the public?
I think that a Treasury Oversight Committee is, it's not a bad idea to have. It's something we did have in place for quite a few years. The reason that we disbanded that committee was the fact that it was poor attendance. I happen to, as treasurer, my doors are always open, and so I meet with other departments, special districts, and school districts. So when I discussed disbanding this, our county pool, the majority of that is made up of school districts, and so the school districts were in agreement with me at that time. They didn't feel that that was necessary to continue because there was an expense to keep that, and there was a low attendance.
Sure.
Again, this is a real issue. Right now we have an independent auditing company that's been the same one for 10 years. A prudent policy is if you change it every 2 years or every year. Right now they're giving each other awards. The auditor company is giving them an award, the Board of Supervisors, and they're giving the auditing company an award. To not change it is not prudent. It's not wise in any way, shape, and manner. The state auditor came in and found out that we have lots of problems here, and those have not been resolved. For instance, too high assessments on mobile homes and not enough assessment on corporations, to give an example.
Okay, since I let you,
When she's referencing awards, that's the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. So the awards that the auditor's office receives that she's referring to, that does not come from our annual auditors. That'd be extreme conflict of interest that she's referring to. So that would be a complete untrue statement. So that's not where they receive that award from. So they don't give one another award and pat each other on the back. That's not how that works, folks.
Thank you. What procedures are in place to expedite tax collection and ensure timely receipts? Say what you want to have.
Well, on the good plus side, we do have where you can pay online, and that's good because up until recently, the office wasn't even open but for several hours a day. When I filed my candidate statement, within days it had changed from just a few hours a day to 9 to 4. I would have it open 9 to 5 because that's how you get to go in and pay because not everybody's on the internet. The other thing is that for those that are sometimes losing their homes because they are not paid, a lot of them don't even get their notices. I would definitely be personally contacting them, make sure that they know that their home is in jeopardy because property taxes aren't being paid. So there's lots of things I would do above and beyond to protect people's rights as well as collect the taxes.
I think it's so endearing that my opponent thinks and would like to take credit for opening up the office hours. That was something that was already in place, but it is very endearing. But as far as expediting the tax services, one of the things that we did during my time, we've been through a couple of bank mergers, and in addition to that, we went through a software upgrade, and so it's something that some of you that have been here for years may have noticed that it used to take a long time for your check. Those of you that send in checks, it used to take a long time for your checks to clear. Well, now we have a live system, so if you come into our counter and you give us your check, now when you it used to be two separate systems, so when we take the check and we have to post it into our tax software, so now it's live, so one talks to the other, and so it's something, so it expedites things really quickly. So that's one thing in addition to the credit cards online, that it's much faster.
Thank you very much, ladies. Give them a hand. So next we will hear from Clerk Recorder Assessor Lisa Wright, Shannon Wright. White and Lorenzo Pini. I read it right, I didn't think.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay, let's start from the other side of the table this time. No, let's start. Yeah, let's start.
So, hi, I'm Shannon White. I'm your current Clerk Recorder Assessor. I'd like to thank the Hayfork Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight, and all of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to meet your candidates and vote for the candidate that you feel will do the best job for you and your community. A little about me. My family moved to Trinity County in 1982. I married my husband, Greg, over 30 years ago, and we're the successful business owners of White Construction and Roofing. We're the proud parents of 2 daughters who were born and raised in Trinity County. My career began with Trinity County 23 years ago as an Account Clerk 1 in the Auditor Controller's Office. Through hard work and dedication, I am now your County Clerk Recorder Assessor. I currently hold my Certified Property Tax Appraiser Certificate. I am 3 courses away from my Advanced Certificate. I also hold a certificate for Recordable Document Examiner, and I've completed 4 courses towards my California Professional Elections Administration credential. I continue to attend annual conferences offered by the various associations to keep me informed of any changes in laws and procedures. Since my appointment, I've done everything possible to protect the confidentiality of voters' information, and I've run elections with honesty, integrity, and following all codes. Contrary to what's being said, I do follow federal, state, and local codes. I don't make them up. A few other accomplishments I've had. I've increased the office hours from 3 hours a day to 6 hours a day. I've implemented the ability to examine official records electronically. And with the assistance of the Treasurer Tax Collector, we can now collect fees with credit cards. A little bit about my team. I'm very proud of them and the customer service they provide. They are hardworking, knowledgeable individuals that make every attempt to ensure customers' needs are met. This is proven by the forms that are sent in and signed that the customers fill out and turn in. I'd like to say, close by saying I've dedicated the past 23 years to Trinity County, and most importantly, the last 8 in this office. My experience has provided me the knowledge and understanding that ensures these departments run efficiently and with integrity. Although I may not be the best public speaker, I am the candidate with most knowledge and experience for this position. I look forward to continue serving you, and I appreciate your vote on June 5th. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Corinne Zappini and I live here in Hayfork, and I have spent the last 12 years fighting for our rights and freedoms. Our right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness is constantly being threatened by officials who believe that the people are not capable of governing their own lives. This needs to change, and it needs to start at our elections. Making sure that our elections are honest is the first step to ensuring our liberty. The second step is to involve the public in every aspect of the electoral process. From voting to observing elections to running for office, the people must participate, and as our elections officer, it will be my mission to make sure these activities are easy to do and that more people participate in running our county and our country. Our assessments are too high and are in fact abnormal. Our poorest citizens are suffering because of this incorrect application of tax laws and are unable to find relief from the current assessor's office. My experience is unique, as I have been politically active since I was 16 years old, and I lobbied extensively at the state capitol for ranchers and farmers, and I know how to make appointments with the legislators and explain issues and suggest solutions that will enable me to be effective when laws that affect our voting and property rights come up. I have taken the appraiser's course, and upon being elected can then take the exam for my appraiser certificate. I am also the youngest member on the California Equal Forum Board of Directors, and I was also elected to help lead their Election Integrity Committee. And I have served as an Election Integrity Project observer for 2 election cycles. I will make a great elections officer because I love the electoral process. I want voter registration to be at an all-time high during my tenure. People need to participate in the electoral process because elections are the foundation of our republic, and without them there will be no liberty. Some of my goals are the registration of all high school students that are old enough to vote, and I hope to have an optional class so that they can learn about the electoral process and their rights as voters. I want to reopen our polling places because closing nearly all the polling places has added to the disenfranchisement of voters. I intend to follow the law which mandates that every voter receive a voter card that shows their name, address, and party affiliation so each voter can be sure it is all correct. Please join me in giving Trinity County back its prosperity by voting for me so that we can live our lives knowing that there are people who will fight for us and that we can fight for ourselves. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the Hayfork Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event and for all of you for coming out tonight to participate. I'm Lisa Wright, and I'm here to ask you to make the right choice this election. You lived for nearly a decade under Board of Supervisor appointed clerk recorders assessors, and I believe it's time for you to have a choice and to have someone elected to represent your interests. Who's Lisa Wright, you might ask? Maybe you have seen me around, maybe you haven't. Well, let me take you back with me to the 3rd grade library day when I was searching out the next biography on an American president. I couldn't get enough. By the time I was in the 6th grade, I thought I was going to become the president. I'd been enthralled with democracy since I was a child. In high school, I was walking door to door on cold November days, offering rides to the polls. I went on from there to earn a bachelor's degree in political science and French. I have a master's degree in public administration. I was one of 200 selected that year following graduation for the Presidential Management Program. And there I went into the U.S. Department of Justice, the Executive Office for U.S. Trustees, where I helped roll out a self-funded program that had investment authority. I was also trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in white-collar crime and fraud investigation, which has been a very useful tool in looking at this office. Home and community really pulled me back, and I later went on to become a controller at a college. I was an executive director of a Chamber of Commerce and executive director of Economic Development Corporation, where we really focused on expanding the tax base rather than riding on the backs of fixed income individuals by raising assessed valuations. We have the speech thing here. I later went on to private sector success, so spending about 15 years in the Oracle software world, advising clients on software purchases as well as consulting. So in all, I've been in the workforce for over 30 years and have a wide variety of experience and credentials to bring to this office. Some of my goals include examining all the processes and procedures for adherence to state and county code. There's very little discretion that's really allowed under the law in the execution of the functions of this office, although there's been quite a bit of discretion taken. I want to review the customer service practices to ensure citizens' concerns are addressed promptly and in a professional, friendly manner. I'd like to establish a public outreach and involvement programs to better leverage volunteers wherever possible. I'd like to provide more information to citizens via trinitycounty.org, but also by going out to remote locations periodically and holding meetings and sessions for input. There were deficiencies found by the grand jury and the BOE, the Board of Equalization, that I believe need to be addressed publicly and immediately. I'd also like to examine the practice of raising assessed valuations annually and really look at better ways that we can protect our fixed income individuals. Also, that would include taking a closer look at discrepancies in assessed valuation of comparable properties that fall outside of Prop 13 protection. And I also want to analyze and the feasibility and public support for reopening polls in remote locations. I've heard that when I've been out around in the various districts. So why am I doing this, right? I have all this going on, I have all this education, I'm involved in business. I'm doing that for you because I really believe that you deserve better representation. I'm committed to protecting your rights, ensuring free and fair elections with transparency, not hiding things. I also believe in private property protection and equitable taxation. So I'm really running to serve you as a fair, honest, transparent office holder who remembers how much blood has been shed and continues to be shed to protect these very important rights that we all have. So I'm asking you tonight, I'm asking each of you to make the right choice this election and vote for Lisa Wright. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Got a substantial pile of questions here. How can we make the voting easier, especially for people who have language barrier?
That's a good question. Language barriers definitely come up in our area with the multicultural nature of our citizenry. I do know that it would be very helpful, I believe, when we have predominant populations of different ethnicities that we provide translators. I also know that the Secretary of State provides ballots in different languages, and that could be very helpful to our variety of population here.
In the 2016 election, several Hmong individuals actually went to the elections office and tried to volunteer as poll workers to enable them to help their fellow countrymen have an easier time voting at the polls because they realized that there was going to be an issue. The elections office refused their help. I would not refuse their help. I would also make every effort to have
30 seconds.
Oh, okay, sorry. Every effort to have ballots in everybody's languages, because I do know we have a few different languages here in Trinity County, and I think that everybody should have equal access to things that they can read for themselves.
So language requirements are issued by the Secretary of State's office. It's based on the census and what people are putting on their voter registration cards. Trinity County is an English-only county. Therefore, we offer English-only ballots. Secretary of State does not offer ballots in multiple languages. It's up to the counties themselves with the requirements to issue those. In 2016, there was nobody who came in to ask if they could be a poll worker. And if you have a language issue, then you can also bring somebody with you to help you with your ballot. They can't go into the booth with you, but they can come with you and help you fill out your ballot, or there's sample ballot booklets that are sent home to you. You can use those to fill them out at home and come mark your ballot at the polls. Thank you.
What are the functions of the clerk, recorder, assessor office? Start with you.
Okay. Well, the assessor is responsible for determining the assessed value of taxable property in Trinity County. The clerk, which includes the elections officer, is to run elections, register people to vote, and maintain voter registration files. The recorder files and preserves documents for land titles in Trinity County, as well as those having to do with liens on land. And in addition, the recorder issues marriage license, performs civil ceremonies, registers birth and death records, and files fictitious business name statements.
That's a very complete answer. Thank you, Forenza. I really have nothing to add.
So the clerk recorder's office is where you could get your certified copies of your birth, death, and marriage certificates. It's where you would file your license to get married. It is where births are registered. It's where deaths are registered. It is also the office where you would record any document to put the public on notice that a transaction has happened with your land. The assessor's office is the office that assesses values on properties. It is the office that It is the office that sends the values to the auditor's office so that they can then apply tax rates, and they send it to the tax collector so they can collect taxes. The elections office is the office where you register to vote, and we run all elections. Thank you.
Next question. What is your current employment? If elected, will you continue this employment?
Well, I wear a variety of hats. I have a number of businesses. One is Clariance Consulting, LLC. That's around the Oracle consulting experience that I mentioned in my opening. I also am the CEO of a new corporation we just formed in February. It's called Flora, and we're a business admin platform providing payroll, HR, marketing. Also, we do licensing and permitting services with a focus on cannabis businesses and helping them enter the newly regulated market. Those are my two primary areas that keep me very busy along with the campaign. Oh, what did I forget? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my Clariance Consulting, that's actually something that I do as an independent contractor, and so I would be cutting out really what I'm doing there. And then Flora, I have someone in line for acting CEO, and so I would need to hire more people, which is really exciting because we need that for the economic base expansion here.
I am currently a rancher here in Hayfork, and no, I will not be working full-time at the ranch anymore. In fact, I will probably have to move to Weaverville in order to devote the kind of time that this office requires. I will probably come home on the weekends to help out, but that's about it.
Well, I'm the clerk recorder assessor, so if you elect me, I will continue doing that job. Thank you.
Okay. How would Prop 8 affect my annual tax payment?
Prop 8 is a temporary reduction in your taxes. That is, you can file if you feel that your property is worth less than what it's currently being valued at, and that is reevaluated every year from the time you file that Prop 8 form. And no, I think that's it.
So a Prop 8 is something that you can file if you feel that your property taxes or your assessment is higher than the current market value. When you file that Prop 8, it's basically an informal appeal. When you file that with the office, then we look at other comparable properties, and we'll reassess it accordingly if it should be assessed for less. Then it's looked at every year, and it can go up each year, but it can never go any higher than your factored base year value.
Well, again, the opponents covered it quite well. It's not a subjective answer, but what I would advocate is that we promote that availability more to people so they understand that there is that option. So if they feel like the assessed value is way over the fair market value, they understand, and there's a simple process that they can take a look at how they could utilize this particular protection.
Next question. What is base year value?
We had this last time. You know, I don't work in the office and I didn't plant the question, so I don't have that memorized, but basically that's what the base year where your assessed property valuation starts at.
Base year value is usually based on what you paid for your property, but not always. If the properties around you that are of similar nature are something that are valued at a lower level or a higher level than what you paid for your property, for instance, if you bought your property during a bubble, they're not actually usually assessed for that bubble value. You're supposed to be assessed for something what your property is actually worth. So that's what base year value is.
So base year value is a proposition. It's Prop 13. It was passed in 1976 and was retro to 1975. It creates a base value of your property when there's a reappraisable transaction. So you sell your house, you have a base year value, and it's factored each year based on the CPI that's issued by the Board of Equalization, not issued by county assessors. So we are required to inflate it by that factor. It can be no more than 2% a year. But so reappraisable transactions would be selling your property, building something, transferring it to another person.
This question is directed to Forenza. County budgets are tight, and you've cost the county over $95,000. Now you're asking the judge to make the county pay for your attorney. As someone running for a county office, can't you see why that is wrong?
Okay, hold on a second. I actually do have an answer here.
So in the 2016 election, a minimum of 40 different elections laws were broken. In fact, the County Council and the Board of Supervisors continue to commit felonies to this day. I and all the other elections observers have tried for years to get the elections officer to follow the laws, and the 2016 primary election was so illegal that I was forced to file an election contest to challenge its validity. It's still in the courts, and I was forced to take the challenge to the state appellate court because the presiding judge, Judge Elizabeth Johnson, said I misinterpreted the election law. But I won a precedent case in the appellate court with all three judges concurring I was correct. My family has spent over $100,000 on this case in the past 2 years. I do not feel guilty.
So there was a complaint to the Secretary of State's office in regards to the June 2016 election, and the letter that came back to the complainant was there was no evidence of criminal election code violations. Thanks for submitting your complaint.
Unsigned.
Okay, this one is for Lisa and Forenza. Regarding the complaints of election fraud by Kay Graves and Mike Weir, are you aware that the State Elections Fraud Investigation Unit has concluded that there is no evidence of election code violations? If so, why do you continue to insinuate publicly that there are violations? Start with you.
I have no knowledge of what they're referring to. Sorry.
Okay.
While I don't have specific knowledge to what Mr. Fisher has asked that question about, in regards to my own election contest, the Secretary of State has actually been known to say, don't bring me anything about fraud in elections. So that's why we're not getting anywhere from our state government.
Thank you. If a candidate runs for a school board position and has no competition, when do you, as a registrar of voters, appoint them to office in lieu of an election? Before election or after the election?
I'm not familiar with the appointment of school board members. I don't know that that's a role of the clerk recorder assessor. Perhaps it is, but I'm not in that role and haven't seen that particular requirement, so I really can't comment.
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not sure it's pertinent. If it is something that we do, I would assume that it would be after the election is held, just like any other appointment, because the space usually comes up after the election is over. You know, when you're elected to something, you don't take over the position the moment the election is over. You take it over in January, usually, unless it's a special election to quickly fill up a vacant seat.
The elections official does not appoint anybody in lieu of an election. The elections official certifies an election and sends information to the particular boards that have the jurisdiction over appointing individuals to boards. Thank you.
I'll just add, for those that you want to know, it's the Board of Supervisors that makes those appointments. This is for Shanna. How will you ensure that voter ballots are safeguarded and do not go missing? Mrs. White, how were ballots lost, destroyed from 2016 general election and not preserved for 22 months?
This is part of the frivolous lawsuit that's going on. There are no ballots that were lost or destroyed from 2016. They're safe kept in our storage area. We do have procedures in place. We have locked cabinets that ballots are put in when they come in. When we receive them from our printing vendor, they go in a locked cabinet. When they come in from the mail, from the vote-by-mail voters, they go in that cabinet. They come out for the apps board to process them. So there's really hard to lose them. And as for them being destroyed or thrown away more than before the 22 months is up is not true. Thank you.
What is your view on the requirements of Proposition 93 on ballot measures?
39?
39. Yes. I do that all the time. You're supposed to know.
So Proposition 39 was actually approved by the voters to change the 55% or change the 67% threshold for adopting school bond measures and lowering that to 55%. There are several qualifications that also kick in order to allow that lower 55% threshold. That would include the local school board has to vote by a 2/3 vote. Also, it needs to go on to a statewide primary or general election, or a regularly scheduled local election, or a statewide special election. So there's some certain qualifications to get that lower threshold.
Everything is as Lisa said. As long as all of those rules are being followed, I have no problem with something that the public voted into place.
So I'm pretty sure this question was put out there because of the Measure J bond that you folks passed in the November election. There's a current lawsuit costing the county thousands and thousands of dollars that Friday hopefully will prevail and it'll be over with spending money. It was a regular scheduled election. The voters passed it by 65%. Therefore, it was legally on a ballot. And hopefully, like I said, Friday it'll be over and the Mountain Valley Joint Unified School District can sell those bonds and fix the mold issues they have at Hayfork High School. Thank you.
Thank you. What is your view on the limitations that Prop 13 place on assessed valuation of property?
Well, I personally love Prop 13. I am a big supporter of the state of Jefferson, so we are taxed enough already. And Prop 13 prevents the state or the county from raising their taxes by arbitrary amounts every year. The maximum amount that they can raise that tax is 2%, and if you do not have to use that entire 2% in the raising every year. But yeah, it's a fantastic law. I'm a great supporter of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which are the ones who put that through.
Yeah, Proposition 13, I think, does provide some important protections. One of the things that it did was it capped out the 1% rate that could be charged for your property taxes. Forenza mentioned the assessed valuation can't go up more than 2%. There's reassessment under a change of ownership, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Interestingly, there's also an initiative that's being considered now that may come up on an upcoming ballot that will change this a little bit. And what it will do is it will require that commercial properties, that their assessed value is based on market value, which now they're protected under Prop 13 increases as well.
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Prop 13 was passed in 76, retro to 75, and it creates that base year value, that starting value. Prior to Prop 13, properties were reassessed every year, so they could go up drastically every year, but it put that cap on that property taxes will be increased based on the CPI, but no more than 2%. We don't have any choices to not apply the full CPI that's issued by this Board of Equalization as long as it's under the 2%. Thank you.
I kind of touched on this one before, but coming from a slightly different point of view. How have or would you educate property owners on Prop 8 reassessment rights?
Yeah, we did touch on that a little bit. I think that there should be more information available. I think you have to search it out now. And I think people should be aware that you can challenge that assessed valuation if you feel that it's over the current market value. There's a process to do that, and it should be made easier and more education provided to our citizens.
Well, I think the way to provide more education towards citizens is to have town halls or post it onto the county website on how to use it, although I think it probably already has something up there. Maybe not enough instruction on it on how to use it, but it's something. And so yeah, educating people I love educating people on their property rights and their voting rights, so it's right up my alley.
It's a very good question. There is on our website the form for your Prop 8. And you just complete that form, you bring it into the office with your reasons of what you feel your property value should be and why you feel it should be that. And then it is looked at with using other comparable properties, close in size, location as what you own, and then it could be reassessed or it could be denied. But it is looked at.
So if it's reassessed, could it go up?
No. It could never go up more than your factored base year value. So it could go up each year. It is looked at each year. So let's say your property was assessed at $100,000. You did a Prop 8 and it was proven that it was should be assessed at $75,000. The next year we look at it, and when we look at comparables, it could be $80,000. So then yes, it would go up to $80,000. It could never go over that $100,000 factored though.
Thanks. This one is addressed here to Shannon. What would you do if a candidate forgot to file a required nomination form in time to be placed on the ballot? Mrs. White, have you ever encountered this situation or backdate stamped these type of documents?
So there's stringent deadlines that you have to file your nomination papers. If you don't file them by that deadline, you're not a candidate. And no, I've never experienced one being turned in late, and I've never backdated anything.
This one also is for you. What potential conflicts of interest are there for an assessor and his/her staff, Mrs. White? Are there written procedures in place?
So there are procedures for your own personal property. Appraisers cannot assess their own property. Another appraiser within the office has to assess that. There are procedures that happens.
Okay, that's the end of the questions, so let's give these ladies a good hand. Now, you want to continue with the sheriff coroner right now, or do you want to take a stretch? Or
Yeah, let's stretch.
want to do a stretch? Okay, let's be back in 5 minutes.
That's the stretch.